And like, I forgot what founding father, but they were talking about how he really like he inherited slaves and he actually had a really good relationship with them. He didn't make any money off the farm, but it was like if he freed them, they would all, what would they do?
Right.
And so he kind of looked at it as, I have to take care of them, and he wasn't even making money off of the farm.
Yeah.
But you know, then they say you're like, even now I'm like, oh gosh.
Well,
So I'm trying to understand what is exactly racist and anti-black in what she's saying here.
So I watched the full live here. 4 hours of obscenity yelling, Nick being racist,
the Holocaust,
and just pearly things laughing.
White.
And guess what? We missed some shit. So here's a couple clips that I thought were crazy. Roll a clip.
You know, and when Ye said, look, the Jewish media is bullying me, what did they say? The Holocaust. This is just like the Holocaust. It's like, no, it isn't. You know, we're criticizing a very standard thing that goes on in powerful industries.
And they use the word anti-Semitic so they don't have to argue with it.
Yeah. And why is anti-Semitism so unspeakably, you know, if you're considered an anti-Semite, why is that so bad? Because the last time that happened, the Holocaust occurred.
I think that's a pretty good reason. Just like black Americans are antsy about white folks wanting to wave around Confederate flags or suggesting that slavery wasn't that bad, and so on and so on and so on. Makes sense to me.
Obsidian contradicted himself a lot in this lie because Pearl's comments downplayed slavery, but he doesn't understand why people are calling her out.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Because the thing is, like, when people call me a Holocaust denier, they say, they make it out like that's my job. Like, hi, you know, like I go to weddings and parties, like, hey, I'm here to like deny the Holocaust or something. Like, I don't even know anything really.
But you don't deny it.
No.
So he, by his own admission, he doesn't even know what the hell he's talking about. And this guy's getting a platform, not just on Jolie. I saw this guy on Fox News with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson needs to be ashamed of himself for letting a know-nothing nincompoop like this guy get on the air.
Really? But Just Pearly Things shouldn't be ashamed, right? She's got a huge platform basically spreading misinformation. So at the bare minimum, you could have had someone on there educated to debunk his talking points.
Comes through with a $5 super chat. He writes, I wish we gave black women the grace and benefit of the doubt that we're giving to this white girl. Just saying. Okay.
Sounds about white. I mean, right. Sounds about right.
It's the Jewish people in the media.
It's about creating this narrative that the Jewish trauma is the worst trauma that anyone's ever had.
The same way they do that with Roots, because Roots, the founder of Roots said, or the guy who made Roots said in quotes, I wanted to make a myth for my people to live by. That was the quote that he used.
There you go. She directly quotes Alex Haley. She didn't make it up. She didn't say slavery was exaggerated. She directly quoted Alex Haley.
She stated the Alex Haley quote because she also believes that quote. So if I said, I only debate with my equals, all others I teach. Dr. Clark. I said that shit because I meant that shit. And that's a bar.
And Miss Just Pearly Things writes in the chat room, in hindsight, I definitely would not have brought it up, it being Alex Haley, Roots, slavery. So there is your mea culpa, ladies and gentlemen. You want a mea culpa. You want accountability. I give you Just Pearly Things. We'll leave it up on the screen. You can read it for yourself.
Saying you shouldn't have said something after getting backlash is not accountability, because the truth is, that's really what she believes. And saying sorry doesn't change that. Nick could come out tomorrow and say he shouldn't have said those things about the Jews, but it doesn't change the fact that he really believes that.
Oshay is right. She owes an apology. Well, if that's true, she already did it. She said she wouldn't have said it had she known it had created all this controversy. She wouldn't have said it. She already said that right there.
I don't want her to apologize for how she really feels. Certain things you do and say, you just can't take back. It is what it is.
First Perfect Blackness with the $5 super chat writes, that wasn't an apology, old man. Plus, she said that with laughing emojis. Now, how sincere would that apology be? See, this is what the apology will be that she'll set up about black stuff, particularly black women. Let's just get right to it. The real apology is she shuts up about black women. Stop making black women make a fool out of themselves. That's what this is really all about. I say, if it was me, I would put up the big middle finger and say, screw you. As long as black women are willing to make a fool out of themselves, I'm going to laugh all the way to the fucking bank. And this is the reason why, if at all possible, you don't want to apologize for shit.
I thought Pearl's talked about all women. And what's interesting is Pearl is trying to debunk claims that she's not a racist on Obsidian's channel. But on one hand, Obsidian is defending a white woman, and on the other hand, he's saying, fuck black women. You making this situation worse, bro. But here's the full clip where she talked about the slave owners. Roll a clip.
Well, yeah, I mean, because of course, we're getting into the details of it, but yeah, that's the gist.
Yeah, I mean, but you kind of deny it happened.
I deny some of the parts of it.
You deny parts of it don't seem realistic to you. You think they were embellished upon.
I think they're embellished, yeah.
The same way. This sounds, oh gosh.
Oh boy.
They're gonna be in trouble. This sounds similar to the slavery stuff too, because that's literally the founder of, or the guy who made Roots said, I wanted a myth for my people to live by. So they often, but that's what they do, is they embellish. And I'm not trying to say it wasn't horrible. It was.
Right.
But they want to make it like more horrible so that they can control people in a way. And that it sounds really similar, because even with the please leave me on YouTube. Please. But even with like the slavery stuff, like that's what they'll do. And they won't talk about instances of like slaves traveling across states. Like when they initially freed the slaves, there were some slaves that felt so indebted to their owners that they would travel across states to pay them back. And they actually had a really good relationship with them. But they act like that wasn't possible. And it was still wrong. It wasn't a good institution.
Right.
But they don't talk about like the more nuanced things that happened in slavery. And like, I forgot what founding father, but they were talking about how he really like he inherited slaves, and he actually had a really good relationship with them. He didn't make any money off the farm, but it was like if he freed them, they would all, what would they do?
Right.
And so he kind of looked at it as, I have to take care of them, and he wasn't even making money off of the farm. But then they say you're like, even now I'm like, oh gosh.
Well,
so I'm trying to understand what is exactly racist and anti-black in what she's saying here.
Obsidian is a lost cause, but Pearls, you really can't be that dumb. I refuse to believe people are this dumb. And I'm not a history expert, but even I know what sharecropping is, so here's a short video about that. Roll a clip.
After Northern troops left the South in 1877, African Americans found themselves in near-slavery conditions once again. Without land of their own, they were often reduced to sharecropping, working the land of their former masters in exchange for a share of the year's harvest.
Former slave owners couldn't imagine the idea of bargaining on any kind of basis with former slaves, and they believed that the only way they could continue to grow cotton was to force African Americans to work. They had to find some kind of coercive mechanism.
The sharecropping system basically allowed farm workers to trade their labor for crops.
African American workers, they don't have tools, they can't supply themselves with seed and other equipment. This is supplied by the landowner. And rather than being paid cash, they are paid a share of the crop.
It was the economic structure of sharecropping that allowed near-slavery conditions to continue on plantations.
Each year you borrow money, and at the end of the year, often you can't pay it back because the price of cotton is falling and what you get for your crop is not enough to actually pay off your debts. So instead of getting out of debt, they're falling further and further into debt each year.
The only way for sharecroppers to pay back their debt was by providing another season of labor to the landowner. They were stuck in place.
What it meant was that African American laborers were tied down to certain geographical areas, and therefore they found it very hard to use their shares of the crop or other wages they might get to accumulate any resources and eventually purchase their own land.
The system of sharecropping finally ended with the industrial boom of the Second World War. Large numbers of African Americans left the South for factory jobs in the North, leaving behind the farms they had toiled on for generations.
So no, slaves didn't have great relationships with their owners. Actually, I take that back. I can't really speak for Abyssinian's ancestors. And most of us had no jobs, nowhere to live, so we worked the farms.
Something that happened when that was one of the big arguments against the abolition of slavery, is that a lot of them would just die because they didn't know how to get along independently. And that did happen for generations.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's actually one of the reasons that why American blacks have a higher average IQ than African blacks on average. And they say that that's because a lot of them just straight up died after the Civil War.
Really?
Because they couldn't get along.
Wow, I did not know that.
Wow. So, and it is.
That's an interesting claim. I like to see the citations and the evidence for that. I'm very skeptical of Fuentes's scholarship, if you will.
At this point, I'm convinced Nick is 100% trolling Pearls, and she's just too stupid to see it.
The Dangerous in the building with the $5 super chat writes, brother, you've been blow for blow fact-checking Nick. Fact-check her ignorance on slavery. Wasn't no slaves with good relationships with their masters, and your evidence is what again? Frederick Douglass had a real good relationship with his slave master's wife. We know that's true because he writes that in his own memoir.
Shut your stupid ass up.
Yeah, that's because he was sleeping with her, giving her that Douglas dick, that long dick. Hey, he was hitting it so good, she was like, I'm gonna teach this nigga how to read. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I got let me borrow your car dick, but I don't got risk your life dick. I don't got no stand in front of the cops for that dick. Now, back in the days when I was broke, maybe, but I'm getting too much money now.
You talk too much.
I do? Well, fuck it, I'm out.